From the Ministry of the Presidency in Georgetown, this is This Week with the President.
Welcome to This Week with the President, a news magazine which provides you with an in-depth look at the policies, programs, and work of the President of Guyana. In the highlights this week, government continues to engage indigenous groups to find common ground on lands COI. $13 million disbursed to schools on the Science and Technology program, and new PUC head takes oath of office. These features and more on This Week with the President. For indigenous peoples, land is much more than property. For them, land is sacred. It forms part of their identity and spirituality, and it represents their connection and oneness with nature. It is for this reason that every effort is being made to ensure that they are not excluded from the process of regularizing all individual, joint, and communal lands across the country. On Thursday, the President continued his engagements with indigenous groups, a process which commenced last week in response to concerns raised on the work of the Lands Commission of Inquiry. He made it clear that contrary to the impression that is being created in some sections, the administration never intended to set up a commission to deal with indigenous lands and not involve indigenous peoples. This meeting offered much-needed clarity to the representatives of the National Tushaus Council, the Amerindian Development Foundation, the Amerindian Peoples Association, and the Guyana Organization of Indigenous Peoples with regard to the work of the Commission.
We are pleased to sit with His Excellency and to put on the table some of the burning issues. One is land, the second one is mining and governance. Where I admire that the President did listen to us, and listening to us and having a full understanding of these issues, because what I perceive that many times the right information do not reach the President. And that is what I believe that was happening through this whole COI and the other issues. But today I want to say that we had the opportunity, the NTC had the opportunity to bring these matters to him and to see how these organizations who represent the indigenous peoples can all work together with the government in addressing some of these issues.
The mandate of the Commission, which was established in March, was to consult with communities in order to examine and make recommendations to resolve issues and uncertainties surrounding the individual, joint, or communal ownership of lands and the Amerindian land titling issues.
Today, we recognize as a government that the issue of land is far from settled. And we decided to take a decision to ensure that our people can live in this land, Guyana, without worrying about their future, without worrying about the security of tenure. Land is a vital economic and social resource in our country. And I'm convinced, the government is convinced, that we have enough land to satisfy all the needs of our people.
A 5-point plan has been proposed by the head of state on the way forward regarding the Commission. This includes a review of all existing agreements and conventions relating to Amerindian lands, a review of the terms of reference of the Commission, endorsement of the principle of free, prior, and informed consent, reconciliation of the positions of the NTC and the government on the objectives of the Commission, and a review of the Amerindian Act.
In the quest for finding answers to the way forward with regards to indigenous rights, indigenous development, it is, I think, the way to go for having this sort of discussion. Today, we have been able to move another step forward in the right direction. We were able to meet with the Tushau from Chinapau, the Tushau from Sholinab, the Tushau from St. Cuthbert, the Tushau from Mainstay Wayaka, and the other indigenous groups. So we are pleased at the discussion, and there is hope at the end of this.
From the discussions, indigenous leaders fully recognize the need for land issues to be addressed holistically and have pledged to cooperate with the government to work out the modalities and how the Commission of Inquiry can proceed. With every passing year, the challenges of ensuring schools' curriculum meet the demands of the rapidly evolving digital world becomes more difficult. How do you ensure that the nation's children are not left behind? How do you ensure that they are equipped to compete with children in more developed countries? More importantly, how do you cultivate a crop of your own highly skilled engineers and scientists? The answer is simple: by prioritizing investment in technology. The National Endowment for Science and Technology NEST program is just one of many initiatives that has been developed by the government of Guyana specifically to reduce the undeniable gap that exists between Guyana and more developed countries, insofar as it relates to building a core of professionals who will drive development in these futuristic sectors of the economy.
This is not a sideshow. This is central to the development of our country. We give a special encouragement to children who are gifted in science and technology. We give special facilities to schools so that they can provide the resources, they can provide the facilities for children to enter science and technology.
On Thursday, the President, whose office is spearheading the NEST program, made the first official disbursement of $1 million each to 13 secondary schools across the country. These are Queen's College, Bishop's High School, St. Rose's High School, St. Joseph's High School, St. Stanislaus College, Anna Regina Multilateral, Zeeburg Secondary School, Saraswati Vidya Niketan Hindu School, President's College, Rosignol Secondary, Berbice High School, 3 Miles Secondary, and the Mackenzie High School.
But this is an important aspect of government policy. It is the future of Guyana. And we are putting money to encourage more children to go into science and technology, so that you could see that it's a rewarding life, personally, and also you can see that your country is being developed. One day you'll be going to the Rupununi and say, hey, this is the first bridge on the Essequibo River. That river is 1,000 kilometers long, you know, and there's not a single bridge on the Essequibo River. One of you will work on that bridge. One of you will help to build a bridge across the Essequibo. Not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bridges. The Berbice River, we want to get a bridge, not only the mouth, but by Kakwani. All of our rivers run mostly from south to north. You learn that in your geography. So if you want to go east and west, from east to west, you have to run into a river sooner or later. And that river better have a bridge. I would like to see the day when you can drive from Crabwood Creek to Sand Creek without getting out of your car, without getting your feet wet. I would like to see aerodromes. I'd like to see stellings in our beautiful islands. But these developments can only come from scientists. These developments can only come from engineers. These developments can only come from a cadre of people who understand the need for science and technology.
The NEST program has its genesis in the presentation of checks of a similar amount to several schools last year, including the SVN, Berbice High School, Queen's College, and President's College, to improve computer and science laboratories. As part of the President's push to promote innovation through investment in the STEM subjects, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So already these schools have been putting in place the necessary tools and equipment.
This year would go far away. We always need resources in our labs. We have the chemistry, physics, biology lab, and we have 2 IT labs as well. So this can even strengthen these labs and can enhance performance significantly, which we're hoping for. So what we're going to do as a senior staff, we're going to sit together and decide where to channel these resources to benefit the children of Region 2.
We pay particular emphasis on these 2 areas because we recognize that without science and technology, we cannot develop Guyana. As the leading institution, we believe that we must set the trends. And so we have been creating an environment where our students are exposed to the highest level of science education and technology. To further enhance those two departments, we've also established about a year ago the SciTech Club. So some of the money will also be going towards the SciTech Club so that our students could start building their own computers.
I see this new push into science technology as a great improvement, as technology will be a great part in the future, and it would be great if the students can get involved in technology and science so that can help better Guyana and better the school system.
Take proper oversight out of the equation of utility services, and consumers are left at the mercy of their various service providers. There are already daily complaints of people not getting value for money from their service providers, and this institutes a clear breach of their rights as paying consumers. It is against this backdrop that President Granger charged newly sworn-in chairperson to the Public Utilities Commission, Ms. Delia Britton, to safeguard the interests of the public without jeopardizing the economic sustainability of utilities.
The Cooperative Republic of Guyana relies on no more important an institution to zealously protect, promote, and preserve citizens' quality of life than the Public Utilities Commission. The Public Utilities Commission plays a vital role in protecting the public interest. It regulates utilities which provide economic and social services to businesses, private individuals, and the government.
This important commission, which was established by way of legislation, is tasked with making the rules for the quality and standards of service to be maintained by public utility, and in this regard is empowered to initiate and conduct investigations into the operations and standards of service provided by any utility, ensures public utilities provide adequate, efficient, and non-discriminatory and safe services to the public, and ensure that just rates are proposed.
The availability of water, electricity, and communication services are associated with a higher quality of life and a high standard of human and societal well-being throughout the country. It is associated also with a reduction of inequalities. These services also contribute to the creation of wealth, to the generation of employment, and to the sustaining of livelihoods and the provision of a good life for all.
Ms. Britton replaces Justice Prem Prasad, who proceeded into retirement in March 2017, following nearly 2 decades of service to the PUC. She is fully acquainted with the Commission's work, being an attorney at law by profession, and is ready to work to bring about positive changes in the delivery of utility services in Guyana, particularly as it relates to the telecommunications sector.
Well, we do have a dynamic group of professionals, and the commissioners have been there for some years, so we are all schooled in how to operate and how to deliberate on certain issues. But of course the commission has to, as I said, be retooled, and being retooled means that we have to have the necessary personnel to assist in that regard, because our duties are strict under the legislation, and because they're strict means that we have mandatory obligations to the consumer, to the utility, the telecoms utility, and to the minister. At present, we advise the minister, but we will have to have a greater collaboration with her ministry.
Together, the Public Utilities Act and the Consumer Protection Act ensure that the environment is created for the efficient, safe, and reliable delivery of service to utility customers at a reasonable cost, and importantly, an avenue is provided for appeal. Positive international relations promote effective policies between nations, particularly as it relates to common interests in the international arena and trade. This is how the accreditation of every new ambassador or high commissioner is viewed, even though it is an ongoing process of succession. On Wednesday, the head of state accepted letters of credence from the new ambassador of the Socialist Republic of Vietnam, Mr. Do Ba Khoa, and the new High Commissioner of the Republic of Mauritius to Guyana, Mr. Surajdev Phokir. These are two countries with whom Guyana has much in common, particularly as it relates to their commitment to environmental protection.
Guyana is moving towards becoming a green state, one that will place emphasis on the protection of our environment, the preservation of our biodiversity, the provision of eco-educational and eco-tourism services, and the promotion of renewable energy and practical measures to ensure climate adaptation. Excellency, I was happy to learn of the progress Vietnam has made in this regard. Guyana and Vietnam have identified coastal zone protection, forest protection, biodiversity conservation as priorities for sustainable development.
Guyana and Mauritius established diplomatic relations in 1992. The two countries have a lot of commonalities in terms of culture and peoples. These commonalities provide a strong basis for further cooperation.
Guyana and Mauritius are young nation states, and our two countries share similar historical developments. Above all, we understand each other. The sharing of common values has helped in paving the way for our two countries to engage into meaningful cooperation in several areas of mutual interest in different international fora. Our two countries can explore the possibilities of cooperation and exchanges in the field of sports, education, tourism, textile, culture, and the ocean economy.
Both countries have also pledged their unwavering support for the Paris Agreement on climate change and the United Nations 2030 Agenda on Sustainable Development.
Guyana and Mauritius are both members of the African, Caribbean, and Pacific group of states. The adverse effects of climate change represent a common challenge for our national development goals. We need to continue to cooperate within the ACP framework on matters relating to the sustainable development of small island development states and low-lying coastal states like Guyana.
The freedom to worship in whatever way or form you choose is perhaps the most quintessential manifestation of the kind of harmony that secularism fosters. This freedom, which is the source of many wars elsewhere in the world, is what Guyanese enjoys unfettered. Over the weekend, leading by example in promoting social cohesion, the head of state attended the 175th anniversary of the Freedom Congregational Church at Stewartville, West Coast Demerara, where he called on the congregation to recapture the spirit of community.
Our communities and our villages cannot be allowed to falter or to fail. But the government cannot repair the damage alone. There needs to be a collaborative effort between the state and the church, between communities and non-governmental organizations.
Congregationalism, which was brought to Guyana by the London Missionary Society, played an important role in both the pre- and post-independent Guyana, giving people hope and a sense of community during the most difficult period in the country's history.
The church can propel itself forward by its continued service to its citizens and its communities. The church can remain relevant and vibrant by combining the profession of faith with the practice of works.
Meanwhile, with this being the holy month of Ramadan, the president also joined with the Muslim community for evening prayer and iftar last Sunday at the Central Islamic Organization, where he spoke of Guyana's multiculturalism that is characterized by harmony and mutual respect.
Iftar, as you can see today, brings together friends and families, and it promotes harmony among peoples. Iftar, when shared with other persons of other faiths, represents the importance which Islam attaches to the acceptance of differences and to the promotion of religious tolerance. The holy month of Ramadan deepens our sensitivity towards others. It helps us to appreciate our differences. It helps us to recognize that we have built in Guyana a harmonious society, a society that reaches across religious and cultural differences.
Over the years, there's been a strong partnership between the government and the CIOG, which has and continues to provide assistance to vulnerable groups and victims of disaster.
We are overjoyed at the presence of His Excellency, Mr. David Granger, to join us here to break the fast with us. And this gives us a sense of joy and pride, and to know that the leadership of our country respect the Muslims of Guyana and respect our worship and the teachings of our faith. This reassurance from His Excellency and his government goes a far way.
And now we take a look inside the President's diary. During the week, President Granger met with Executive Vice Chair of Conservation International, Dr. Russell Mittermeier, who expressed his full support for Guyana's Green State agenda. Dr. Mittermeier said that Guyana is one of the few countries in the world with the highest forest cover and is well positioned to be the global face of the Guyana Shield. He noted that given the country's stance in the global arena with regard to environmental protection, many other countries and international organizations will be looking to Guyana for partnerships. This week in the Presidency and Beyond, we take a look at First Lady Mrs. Sandra Granger's recent interaction with the beauty ambassadors of the Miss World pageant. The delegates representing the 10 administrative regions were given advice on how they can better execute their Beauty with a Purpose one-year projects, which all focus on complex social issues. Some of the social issues that the delegates will be tackling include suicide, hunger and malnutrition, different forms of abuse, and chronic diseases. The winner of the local leg of the pageant will be heading to China later this year to compete for the Miss World crown. And with that, we've come to the end of this week's program. Thank you for joining me. For regular updates on the Ministry of the Presidency, go to our website, www.motp.gov.gy. Like our Facebook page, Ministry of the Presidency, and follow us on Twitter and Instagram at MOTP Guyana. Do have a safe and productive rest of the week. Goodbye.